hop on the Getter chat room.
Engage with patriots who are just like you.
Good morning, Getter friends.
We're breaking news, we're delivering the truth,
and we're doing it on Getter
every single day.
So don't wait. Download the Getter app now.
Sign up for free and be part of the movement.
This isn't just an app. It isn't just a social media platform. It's a community.
Happens when the fourth turning meets fifth generation warfare.
A commentator, international social media sensation, and former Navy intelligence veteran.
This is Human Events with your host, Jack Posobiec.
Christ is
Traffic has resumed across Crimea's Kerch Bridge after Ukraine hit its foundations with underwater explosives. The explosion marked the latest offensives from Ukraine. Over the weekend, a Ukraine drone attack damaged dozens of warplanes deep inside Russia. Meanwhile, Russian strikes on Ukraine's civilian areas continue, killing at least 8 and injuring 50.
Iran Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has now criticized and appears to have flat out rejected a proposal by the U.S. amid negotiations over Tehran's rapidly advancing nuclear program, saying Iran refuses to give up enriching uranium in any possible deal, which is essentially the purpose of any kind of deal with the U.S.
The White House sent a request yesterday to congressional leaders to pull back more than $9 billion in approved spending. Most of it's for foreign aid.
Well, this is called a rescission, and it is intended to try to take those Musk-generated Doge cuts, the slashes in departments and budgets, and make them permanent.
2 Chinese researchers charged with smuggling what's considered to be a potential weapon for agroterrorism into the U.S., and that prosecutors say could target the nation's food supply.
We're talking about a fungus which DOJ is calling a potential bioterror threat. Take a look at it under the microscope. This is Fusarium graminearum, and it causes billions of dollars in crop damage each year. A pathogen that rots wheat, barley, and rice, and if consumed by humans can cause vomiting, liver damage, and birth defects.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition, Human Events Daily, here live, Washington, D.C. Today is June 4th, 2025, Anno Domini. It is the 36th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre, where proud Chinese citizens stood up for their country against communism and reference inside the Oval Office, signing those executive orders. And look, the president there, he's willing to say what needs to be said. Tulsi Gabbard, boom, she's going to be getting in at DNI. Ash Patel, boom, going over to the FBI. And he said, well, we're going to have to straighten them out. You know, just going to have to straighten them out. Because you see, boys and girls, the problem now that we have with the FBI is they are not acting in the sense of greatness. No, they're really not. No, and we're going to have to make them great again. And that's what President Trump said there. And of course, he's in the process of doing so through the acting Attorney General, Ryan Emmel. And this is the case. And by the way, they have until 3 p.m. today. So you got one more hour. You got one more hour, FBI. You got one more hour, because there's no options. There's no more options. File your answers to your questionnaire and come back. And by the way, now hear all this news about them going after the Doge employees and overall, I'm getting some reports already on this, and we're going to be digging into this a little bit more. But I'm hearing reports of Doge employees being doxxed, of their addresses going up, of their families' addresses going up. Guess what? That's a crime. All right. That is a crime. That is criminal behavior. And if anyone tries swatting or anything like that, guess what? Now you're threatening government officials. So we're going to look into all this. Of course, USAID, huge protests going on over there. I don't know, it's huge, actually, I should say. Maybe it's sizable. It's a sizable protest, not a huge protest. It's sizable. But they're going after Elon Musk there. as well as Doge. We got a lot going on today, so stay tuned. Human Events Daily will continue. Echelons of the White House. Why are Brennan and Clapper people still walking around with blue badges? Why is anyone who was involved with the prior Biden or Obama administrations walking around in positions of power within the Trump administration? Their goals and their agenda are separate from the agenda of the people's president that the people voted for in 2024. We'll be right back.
A commentator, international social media sensation, and former Navy intelligence veteran.
This is Human Events with your host, Jack Posobiec.
Christ is King.
All right, this is Jack Posobiec. You are listening to Human Events Daily. Wanted to welcome the Salem News audience. It's an honor to be here. We go now live to J.D. Vance, where he's taking questions in East Palestine.
I do think that we continue to need to do better at rail safety in this country. And I even talked to the fire chief a little bit.
Our live Washington, D.C. I want to bring in Real America's Voice, as well as the Salem Radio Network, Hour 3, Charlie Kirk. President Trump tweeting out about the Russian response to Ukraine's drone attacks, and also this idea and the news, breaking his own news that he just held an hour and 15-minute long phone call with Putin from the White House. We'll be breaking down that and more as the show continues. Folks, let me tell you something real quick, though. Let's be real. Losing weight, it ain't just about looking good. It's about taking back control of your health. Now, 42% of adults in America are classified as obese currently. It's directly linked to severe health issues. We're talking about heart disease, diabetes, stroke, and cancer, which costs Americans over $173 billion each year in medical expenses alone. If you're dieting and working out with no success, it's not your fault. The system is rigged against you. But there's good news. The wellness company just launched Drop, a GLP-1 peptide oral drop formula developed by their chief medical board, designed to support your metabolism, curb cravings, and help you shed weight. That's right. No injections or risk of severe side effects. We're not seeing in the Zempic. Just take Drop in water, gradually increasing the quantity over time, letting your body do the rest. Start your weight loss journey today and get $50 off plus free shipping. Head to twc.health/POSO and use promo code POSO. That's twc.health/POSO. Take action today for a healthier tomorrow. All right, guys, we are very excited because
Great. Thanks for having me.
Well, Larry, tell us a little bit about this piece. What made you want to put it together, and what did you find?
Oh, look, I've been in the digital space in conservative politics for over 20 years. We were the first to call out Google in 2004 for bias in its ad algorithm. We were the first shadow banned account on Facebook when I put up a meme that said, when Obama calls the SEALs, they got bin Laden. When the SEALs called Obama, they got denied. It's long documented. The bias in the Silicon Valley tendency to censor, to demonetize, to choke conservative content has been well documented. It was covert at one point, but over the last couple of years, they were really overt about it, and now they're going back in the closet and being more covert about their bias. But anybody that's used AI and asked political questions automatically gets the liberal bias answer first, and it's like getting the first page of Google, because people make up their mind on the first page of Google. You're going to make up your mind on the first answer from the prompt on the political question that you're asking. And over and over again, AI has shown that it has very strong liberal bias.
Well, and this really goes back to one of those things that, like, I'm not a computer programmer, but, I do understand some of the basics of this, and garbage in, garbage out. This has always been one of the issues in computing. It's always been one of the issues in algorithms or systemic modeling. And that's the same issue that a lot of the AI has now, not just the bias in terms of being fed these far left sources like Wikipedia or the New York Times or so many of liberal corporate media that's out there. But also one of the issues that's come up is that AI is degrading as the models are continuing to be trained on these on the internet, because there's so much AI generated content that's now appearing on the internet. So you have AI that's being trained on AI, which degrades the overall value of the model itself.
You're 100% right, and it's going to continue to get worse. And look, AI is now, these AI companies, these major LLMs are making deals. You saw there was a huge deal with Amazon that was put out there to the New York Times, where they're paying the New York Times an undisclosed amount of money, probably hundreds of millions of dollars, to train its model on the New York Times. And you're seeing that these companies are going out either to mainstream or to very liberal publications and paying them a lot of money so that they can train their model on their content. And what they're not doing is they're not seeking out conservative publications and conservative voices like Human Events or the Post Millennial or the Washington Examiner and et cetera and so on. And we have to get these AI companies for two reasons. One, the Silicon Valley has destroyed the financial wherewithal of a lot of these companies on the right, because they've demonetized them, they've throttled them, they've choked them, and they've put them in deep financial stress. And two, these AI models need to be trusted. And, look, I've said this for a very long time. Trust is the number one asset. It's the number one investment that AI companies need to make in order to yield a high investment. And right now, who's going to trust an AI company like OpenAI or Google that puts George Washington as a black president? Or, you type in OpenAI, who's the president, and they say Joe Biden is still the president. I mean, there's lots and lots of evidence overall that they are just off the rails in terms of their liberal bias.
Well, and so what you're explaining, though, is actually potentially a way for AI to correct this issue or potentially help with this. And perhaps President Trump's AI policy, we know that this is coming out of the White House now. That's something where numerous individuals in the administration, I would say Elon, but, he's sort of stepped away, but he obviously plays a huge role in Grok and XAI, even going to the point where I believe that X itself has now been signed over to XAI, so that all of the content that I post on X, that everyone posts on X, it's already being fed into the XAI algorithm, so that it's training Grok as you go. And so there's no issues there. So one of the now obviously there's conservatives and liberals on it, but what you're saying is that they could go in and actually work with, feed it Human Events, feed it The War Room, feed it Tucker Carlson, and then you would get, at least achieve a balance or an understanding that there are various perspectives on these issues.
You're absolutely right. There has to be an equal weight. The way these systems work is they weight these publications, they weight these sources. There has to be an equal weight on the conservative side as there is on the liberal side. And these companies not only have to use their content, but they also have to pay for the content, and it has to be at the same market rate that they're making deals with the New York Times, that they're making deals with the Washington Post and CNN. They have to use conservative publications and paid conservative publications at least the same amount, if not more, because they've been using they've been throttling and demonetizing and hurting these conservative publications for a very long time.
Well, and we know, and this has been done all the way back to the days of Breitbart and Sleeping Giants, that they use this as a model to block conservative news or just truthful news, anything that's out there telling the truth, whether it be Russia, whether it be Hunter Biden, whether it be Joe Biden's mental status, or whether it be COVID and everything that's happening in these Chinese pathogens. And apparently we just caught another Chinese pathogen up in Michigan. Larry Ward is on with us now. He's the head of Market Rhythm. He's got a great column up on humanevents.com. I'm Jack Posobiec. You're listening to the Salem Radio Network and watching on Real America's Voice. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be right back because this is so important. Ending the bias in AI. And it's got to start now, folks, because understand this right now is the worst AI will ever be. This is Model 1.
I'm Bo Davidson with your Real America's Voice headlines. Well, the budget battle continues on Capitol Hill. The Senate now has its turn to make some changes. Axios is reporting that Senate Republicans are mapping out the July 4th stretch goal. Senate Majority Leader John Thune reportedly met with President Trump this week, and they are trying to ease any concerns about tax and spending cuts, Medicaid, and other divisions. And Elon Musk has some very, very harsh criticism of the budget. He posted on X the following: "I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it." Meanwhile, 2 Chinese researchers have been charged by U.S. authorities for allegedly smuggling a dangerous fungus into the United States that they plan to study at a University of Michigan lab. The fungus is considered a potential agro-terrorism weapon due to its ability to cause severe crop diseases and produce toxins harmful to both humans and livestock. The researchers reportedly brought the fungus into the country without the necessary federal permits, raising significant national security concerns. Meanwhile, the White House formally sends its DOGE spending cuts request over to Congress. This $9.4 billion package is also known as rescissions, and it would eliminate funding already passed by Congress. The majority of the cuts target NPR, PBS, and USAID, and Congress will have 45 days to consider the package after the White House sent it over. Speaker Mike Johnson said the House will act quickly on this. And President Trump says Chinese President Xi Jinping is very hard to make a deal with. Trump says he likes Xi, and he always has in a Truth Social post, but he is very hard to make a deal with. The White House said President Trump and Xi will speak about a trade deal coming up this week. This comes after Trump said China violated an agreement to roll back tariffs. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the trade talks were a bit stalled, and the 2 countries' leaders would need to weigh in. Those are your headlines. Now back to Jack Posobiec and Human.
Today, they talk about influencers. These are influencers, and they're friends of mine. Jack Posobiec. Where's Jack? Jack, he's done a great job.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec back live, Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice, Salem Radio Network. Folks, I got a question for you. You ever notice how the power always seems to go out right when you need it the most? Whether it's a heat wave or a summer storm or just too many people running the AC at once, our fragile grid can't keep up. And that's why I got the Grid Doctor 3300 solar generator from My Patriot Supply. This thing is an absolute beast. 3,300 watts of off-grid power. Tell you what, it keeps your fridge, your freezer, your lights, even medical devices running whenever grid power fails. And of course, charges all my devices. And right now, they've got a crazy deal going. When you buy the Grid Doctor 3300, they will throw in 2 waterproof 200-watt solar panels completely for free. We're talking an almost $900 value. These aren't cheap plastic panels either. No, these are super durable, waterproof, built to last through storms, heat, and who knows what else. So shop at mypatriotsupply.com/Jack to claim your free panels today. If there was ever a time to get serious about blackout protection, this is it. Go to mypatriotsupply.com/Jack. That's mypatriotsupply.com/Jack and get yours today. All right, we're back on with the president of Market Rhythm, Larry Ward, and he's walking through his new column that's up on humanevents.com, and he's arguing that conservative publications need to be included in these AI models to fix the liberal bias problem. And Larry, I'll throw it back to you, because you're not talking about making AI conservative. You're about making it viewpoint neutral so that true information is able to actually get through the screen.
Oh, absolutely. Look, if we went to 2020, when COVID was around and these AI models were just trained on the liberal bias, what would we have? We would have, the AI telling everybody they got to wear masks and go out and get vaccines and stay indoors, of course, until there's a Black Lives Matter protest, and then go out and participate. That's what it would have been telling the American people, and how many more people would have been fooled into some of the nonsense that went on during COVID. So, we have have to look at this. It's a national security risk. These biased AI systems, they pose a national threat because they create blind spots in everything from policy analysis to threat assessment. So we have to have a neutral view. We have to have both conservative and liberal perspectives. And quite frankly, like I keep going back to, these AI companies should put their money where their mouth is and contribute and contract with these publications, these conservative publications, and pay the market rate as soon as humanly possible.
One of the pieces that you've spoken about in here is also the idea of a mandate, and the idea potentially of a mandate or some form of regulation coming out from the federal government saying this needs to be in there, and if it's not in there, we're going to have problems. Do you think that's something the Trump administration could do?
Absolutely. Look, I am a laissez-faire, conservative capitalist. I've been that way my whole life. So for me to come out and say that this needs to happen, that government needs to be involved, and government must make sure that the AI systems are balanced with conservative and liberal media is very, very important. It's important for a lot of different reasons. So mandatory inclusion and having the administration either issue an executive order, push Congress, or even just push these companies, pressure these companies into doing business with conservatives and signing long-term contracts is essential. We have to have AI without bias.
Well, and it's as simple as that. And you talk to anybody in Silicon Valley right now, and they'll tell you that Google is done. Google search, it's like the butt of a joke. That, oh, you guys still use Google, blah, blah, blah. What are you using Google for? It's all about AI clients. Everybody uses AI on their phones out there right now. Anyone in California, right? You're talking to them. And even I've noticed it just anecdotally. People, my wife, she'll use AI she's searching this, she's searching that. If she's writing something, English isn't her first language, so if she wants to double check something, she'll use AI constantly. Not that she used to do it a lot, but just double check, make sure that it's written up right. You need to know that the information you're getting is unbiased and is accurate. Larry, where can people go to follow you and get more access to this article?
Well, you can go to constitutionalrightspact.com. That's our political action committee, or In Service of Humanity. And that is a 501c3 newly formed to create AI that is totally in service of humanity, as opposed to having humanity in service of AI.
AI in service of humanity. I like that. It's got a populist feel to it, Larry. This was great. Please come back on anytime you like. These issues are so important. And guess what, folks? They're not science future. They're science now. Jack Posobiec will be right back. We're talking AI today. Real America's Voice, Salem Radio Network.
And I'm Bo Davidson with your Real America's Voice headlines. The Congressional Budget Office says that President Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill would cut taxes by $3.7 trillion while adding $2.4 trillion to the national debt. The Trump administration and congressional Republicans have criticized the CBO's analysis, arguing that the CBO underestimated the growth in federal tax receipts spurred by greater economic activity as a result of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that passed back in 2017. And over in Arizona, Governor Katie Hobbs is facing backlash for vetoing a bill that would prevent China from buying up land next to strategic assets, such as military bases. Arizona State Senate Majority Leader Janae Shamp called Hobbs's move, quote, utterly insane, and called her an obstructionist. Chinese investment in strategic land, especially near military bases, has been a growing national security concern. Hobbs is up for re-election next year, and vetoes such as this could impact her chances. And in other news, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has ordered a renaming of the Navy ship the USNS Harvey Milk, which had been named after the San Francisco gay rights activist. The Military Times reported the renaming of the ship, referencing a memo from the Office of the Secretary of the Navy. Now, according to reports, this move is intended to be in line with the Commander-in-Chief's priorities, ethos, and history. And peace talks between Russia and Ukraine are stalling after Ukraine's attack on Russian military planes. When asked what response there would be, Russia's deputy foreign minister said that, quote, all options are on the table, that it is a question for our military. Russia also urged the UK and the US to react in such a way that would stop further escalation, implying that the West aided Ukraine with target coordinates, supplied weapons, and refusing to condemn the act. After Trump rebuked Vladimir Putin a week earlier, Trump's Ukraine envoy said that escalation from the war is, quote, going way up. White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said that the U.S. did not receive any advance notice of Ukraine's strikes. And those are your Real America's Voice headlines from our newsroom. We'll head back now to Jack Posobiec in Human Events.
And Jack, where's Jack? Where's Jack? Where is he? Jack, I want to see you. Great job, Jack. Thank you. What a job you do. You know, we have an incredible thing. We're always talking about the fake news and the bad, but we have guys, and these are the guys who should be getting Pulitzers.
All right, Jack Posobiec back, Human Events Daily. Last week, I recorded an debate with Libby Emmons regarding AI. We weren't able to play it because of time constraints, but we have it, and we're going to play it for you right now. She and I have been having a long-standing debate about the use of AI, and I think it was time for another round because she wrote another op-ed on it, and I was like, all right, let's see what Libby's got to say about AI now. So for folks who hadn't seen the earlier stages of this debate, I have said that AI is okay to use, and I've clearly used it in marketing, and I've used it in some things, you know, either for the show or, you know, videos that we've made. What did we made the preceptions of various videos in the past, even years ago. And Libby is just totally against AI. She's like out of it. She doesn't want to use it. She's militantly Luddite on the question of AI. So I wanted to get into this op-ed. Libby, have at it.
I wouldn't say I'm a Luddite. I would say I'm a lover of humanity, and I love words and I love stories. So just pushing back right there. But yeah, we've seen some recent developments in AI that have been pretty stunning, and I would say back up my view, which is that AI is a tool, and it's not a tool that should be used by someone who doesn't know how to use that tool. We had a situation recently where a commissioned author wrote a summer reading list and used AI to get recommendations for that recommended summer reading list, and the AI spit out a bunch of fake books by real authors. So that actually, he didn't check it, the author didn't check it, his editors didn't check it, no fact checkers checked it, and the whole thing ran in a big advertorial supplement in the Philadelphia Inquirer and the Chicago Sun-Times. So that was amazing. A federal judge is seeking to hold a law firm in Alabama for sanctions after that law firm filed a brief with fake citations of fake cases in order to defend themselves. And that's not the first time that that has happened. What we have going on here is what are being called AI hallucinations, otherwise known as complete and total lies and fabrications, where AI is asked a question and it just makes stuff up. And then people are too lazy to check what the AI has spit back out at them and just run with it, completely unaware and apparently unperturbed by the fact that they're just spreading lies.
Well, and I agree with you that AI does, and I've always said that AI, you can't take it at face value. You always have to edit. You have to have a human coming in and doing this. But I suppose my issue, though, isn't necessarily that people are being lazy. Of course, they're being lazy. But but the other side is that if you only have a firm that's using humans only, and other people are using AI as a tool, not as the end all be all, but as a tool, they are going to lap you and they are going to get ahead of you. And that's always been my position. And I want to play, and I apologize that the on the radio side, you won't be able to hear this, the podcast side, but there's this video that the Wall Street Journal put together, this new movie that came out from it's completely AI generated. It's completely AI created. Every scene of it, there are no humans involved. There are no it's my life with my robot. It's sort of a sitcom. And I'm sorry, and Libby, you've seen this as well. It looks almost perfect. It looks almost perfect, like something you would see on TV at any time. Yet there's no actors. It's kind of cute. It's called My Robot and Me. It's very funny. And it's all AI generated. And so I guess my question is, if you're putting out stuff like this, how are you going to compete cost-wise if you have to pay actors and writers and producers and all the rest when the company next to you is producing stuff that's 80-90% as good, but for a drastically reduced cost?
Yeah, I see what you're saying about the cost issue. And I don't think that I don't think that artists need actually to spend a whole lot of money to make good art. I don't think that's necessarily what has to happen. Also, I would posit that A Small Wonder, I don't know if you remember that show, was at least just as good as this robot show that's come out now that's, all manufactured this way. But the thing, too, that I think it's really important to recognize is that the AI models that are being trained on existing content. And so far, that existing content is human generated. It's, all of the stuff on the internet that has been written and created by human beings, from filmmakers to writers to actors and producers and whoever else. And that's what the AI is being trained on. But we're increasingly going to get to a situation where AI is being trained on AI content. And we're going to find ourselves in an endless regurgitation loop with absolutely no new ideas being presented or consumed. And human beings perhaps are going to be satisfied with something that appears to be good enough, but it's not really going to be as worthwhile as what comes out of the human brain. We like to say to ourselves that AI is thinking, but you can only truly believe that AI is thinking if you don't think very highly of thinking itself, because AI is not actually generating anything new. It is simply amalgamating that which is already out there, and it doesn't have the capability of distinguishing between good and bad, or right and wrong, or true and false.
Well, Libby, and I'll throw this one to you here, because there was an article, I think it was an op-ed, I guess, out of the Register earlier this week that says there are signs of AI model collapse that are beginning to reveal themselves. And I don't want to go through all of the iterations of it. It's talking about how search engines are now being AI optimized, how AI is definitely better for search than Google has ever been. Google is no longer the best search engine. However, one of the big issues that they have is that AI is currently being trained in these large language models, is being trained on the open internet in many cases. They're not being trained on archives. And the issue with that is that there's now so much AI-generated content on the internet
that it's being trained by content that is itself AI generated. So it gets to your point. This is speaking exactly to what you're saying, that the AI is being trained on AI generated content. And so without the human generated content, it is now the models are degrading and the models are failing. And this is because, by the way, just to step back for a second, this is because what we're referring to in terms of ChatGPT and Grok and even XAI, it's not actually artificial intelligence. What it is are large language models. What does that do? It takes in large bulks of information, words, sentences, phrases, newspaper articles, novels, books, magazines, etc., movie scripts, plugs them all in together, and then creates an algorithm basically of how humans speak by defining word maps and which word is close to another word and things like this. And so it can understand that based on where humans have written. The problem is, as you go into more and more AI-generated content, the human touch is lost, and therefore the AI itself becomes degraded. So this is already becoming an issue as people look at these models. And I guess there was a paper in Nature in 2024 that was talking about this and said, and quotes, "The model becomes poisoned with its own projection of reality," and we're talking about error accumulation, et cetera, et cetera. However, I'm still going to stick with my position here, because this is an issue with this particular version of AI. Yeah, there's going to be, a bunch of bugs and glitches and things that need to be worked out. But I want to be clear about something, and this is just a fact. This is the worst AI will ever be, because this is version 1.0. So the things that we're seeing now, the writing, the movies that are being generated, it's only going to get better from here on. Humanity is going to go through a new epoch. People are currently preparing their entire lives for career fields that will not exist in 5 years. And I don't know if we as a society are even considering what the implications of this are going to be.
Yeah, that's why education should not be about preparing for someone for a job, but should be about preparing yourself to learn, to change, to grow, to understand, to research, to figure things out on your own. That's what education is about. That's what it's supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about, figuring out how to be the best cog in the machine. That's not the point of it, and it shouldn't be the point of it. And it wasn't the point of it going back to the Greeks, who were some of the best educators, which I think speaks to a certain extent to my point, which is that the ancient stuff is still better than all the AI stuff that's being spit out right now. And the AI content that's being spit out right now still requires a human touch. I've messed around with some of the AI, movie generation things, and I'm certainly not an expert, and I'm not great at figuring out what the right prompt is to get what it is that I am hoping for. So I tend to just go back to trying to draw it, frankly. But I think that these are tools. They are tools that need to be learned how to use them. You don't just walk into a shop class and start messing around with the table saw without losing a couple of fingers. So that's a key part of this, right? You can't just unleash a massive tool engine like this on the world and expect it all to get worked out and expect people to just figure out how to use it. It diminishes in many ways the way that we are using it now. It diminishes what human consciousness is, because we equate human consciousness to the AI, tools, to the AI LLM, and that's not something that we should be doing. And I think it's also very important to remember that AI is created in man's image and human beings are created in God's image, and we cannot turn and start worshiping and venerating this thing that we have created without climbing that Tower of Babel and getting smoten down, because that is also what we're looking at. And that's what some of these AI hallucinations remind me of. It reminds me of the Golem and Frankenstein and Icarus flying too close to the sun. When we look to our old stories, we end up seeing what we can face in the future, and we need to heed those lessons for sure. And yeah, I am probably hopelessly 20th century, and I'll stick to my books and my card catalog for sure, but I'm not opposed to trying new things. I just think that we always need to be aware of what it is that we are giving up when we are grabbing onto the new shiny thing.
Look, Michael Crichton has always been and continues to be my favorite author, and this is Science Run Amok has always been, and Technology Run Amok has always been at the heart of all of his writings, as well as false allegations in the movie / book Disclosure. Libby, we're just about out of time. I love the great AI debate. Where can people go and follow you, get more access to your work?
You can find me on X at Libby Emmons. And of course, please check out all the great work we're doing at humanevents.com and thepostmillennial.com every day.
Libby Emmons, everyone, make sure you're following her because she's always going to say something incredibly interesting. Even when she's wrong, even when Poso's right, as we know. We'll be right back with Craig.
America. Get ready to launch into the future of freedom at the largest student event in the nation. SAS is back. Join thousands of fellow students ready to pioneer a bold new era for America at our Student Action Summit. And we're bringing in the biggest voices in the movement. Featuring Charlie Kirk, Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, Dr. Ben Carson, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, Brandon Brandon Tatum, James O'Keefe, Benny Johnson, Jack Posobiec, and more. From July 11th through 13th in Tampa, Florida. Register now at SAS2025.com.
When I'm working long hours, I'm always listening to Human Events with Jack Posobiec.
All right, Jack Posobiec back live here, Human Events Daily, Washington, D.C., Real America's Voice, Salem Radio Network. And I got some questions regarding the big, beautiful bill, or as I'd like to call it, the big, beautiful deportation bill. This should be called, and rightfully should be called, the big, beautiful deportation bill, because that's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. This is about getting the tools, the resources, and the capabilities to those in power throughout DHS and other elements of the federal government to be able to conduct the mass deportations that won at the ballot box in 2024. And so I understand, though, that there are some folks who say, well, wait a minute, what about the debt? Okay. What about entitlement programs? When are we going to get some work done on that? And let me walk you through this a little bit, okay? It's a tweet that I posted earlier today because I said I don't think you're thinking of these mass deportations, a series of tweets that I was posting earlier today, thinking of them in the proper way. And I want to get your mind right on this because here's what's going on. What's going on is you are thinking that deporting people isn't related to our federal debt and entitlement crisis because you're only looking at the supply side of the equation. But if you reduce the demand side of the equation, you can reduce the overall expenditures. Mass deportations means fiscal responsibility. And few seem to understand this. Because if you reduce the amount of people on the entitlement programs, you will reduce the spending on the entitlement programs and further reduce the debt. And I can go through stats. I can go through all day long the reporting out of FAIR, the reporting even back in 2017. FAIR was putting out reports saying that illegal aliens, illegal immigration cost Americans on net, $116 billion a year. And remember, that's indirect and direct costs through entitlement and welfare programs. What do I mean by that? Well, the children of illegal aliens, guess what? They're eligible for entitlement programs. They're eligible for SNAP. They're eligible for education. They're eligible for health care in many cases. So they get all of those things. And then the parents are eligible through, they're not eligible, but the parents do access these programs through a variety of means, including, fraud. In variety of means, including going and getting a driver's license in places where you're able to get one, where they're not checking your citizenship, and then signing up for public benefits. 43% of immigrants, illegal and legal, are on some form of welfare program. 43% in this country. And so if you reduce the amount of illegal aliens in this country, the solution, mass deportations, guess what? You will reduce the amount of people. This is like basic 101 level stuff, but it's amazing because I hear all these fiscal hawks and people say, you just want to fund mass deportations. That's what this bill is about. That's what the big, beautiful deportation bill is about. That's all you care about is mass deportations. What about fiscal policy? What about fiscal conservatism? And I'm just sitting there like, guys, it's very simple. You can either have social programs or an open border, but you can't have both. You can't have what we've been running in this country for the past, and I'm not just going to say under the Biden auto pen administration. No, I'm going to say going all the way back under Bush, all the way back even to the 1980s. It's been a free-for-all in this country. Open borders and generous and robust social programs are the death knell of any nation. You can't have both. So if you invite the entire world and say, come take our free stuff, what do you think the world's going to do, boys and girls? And by the way, I get it. This is basic economic incentives, especially if you live within walking distance or caravanning distance of the United States? Of course you're going to do that. You're going to come up from Guatemala or any of these places. Why? Because they're giving out free stuff. And it's not to mention these, somehow they're able to make their way from Africa over to the United States. Have you ever looked at one of those flights? Those aren't free, okay? Plane tickets are not exactly the cheapest thing on the planet. So they're all coming over. Understand, it's very simple. Pass the big, beautiful deportation bill, and the deportations will reduce the size of the entitlement programs. Stop looking only at the supply side and look at the demand side. Reduce the users by removing them from the country. What a concept. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jack Posobiec. You've been watching Human Events Daily. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.